Joining us in the studios here to discuss those issues and more, would like to welcome Learned Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Yunus Ustaz Usman. Pleasure to have you in our Abuja studios, always from Kaduna.
Good morning.
Yeah, good to see you here. And also here with us in the studios is Harry Oguche Obe. He's a director of the National Human Rights Commission. Mr. Obe, pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here too.
Okay.
All right, and we also have Ayobame Akonji, a public affairs commentator, joining us in the studio here as well. You're welcome.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
All right, gentlemen, I'm sure you listened to the background report. And just to indicate that Lagos was one of several states last year that set up judicial commissions of inquiry based on the agreement amongst governors to probe into the issues around the NSAS protests that rocked the parts of the country in October of last year. Here in the Federal Capital Territory, the National Human Rights Commission also set up a panel of inquiry, and we have the director of the National Human Rights Commission here with us in the studios to give us an indication first of what the status is with the work of the panel. That of Lagos has submitted this report, and a number of states, we also understand, have received their reports. But here in the Federal Capital Territory, what is the update?
Thank you. The panel in FCT, which is anchored by the National Human Rights Commission, is still ongoing. There was a break that took some time for us to actually look at some of logistic issues. And then after that, the panel reconvened, and they're still hearing. They're hoping that by the end of this year and early next year, we'll be able to conclude hearing of some of the complaints that have been scheduled, and then a report will actually be submitted. So basically, that's where the commission panel is now. It's still sitting.
Well, initially, the various panels were given a 6-month deadline within which to complete their assignment. That of Lagos took a year, as it were. So, but yours would appear now to be longer than a year. Well, what accounts for this? I mean, in the case of Lagos, there were frequent reports, but what accounts for that in the FCT?
Well, to be blunt, it had something to do with funds. The commission didn't get the type of funding that we wanted to actually accelerate hearing. And there's a lot of logistics involved in panel sitting and proceedings. And so when we had that break, we needed to actually look for some of the things that would be that was required to actually bring the panel back. And we had so many people submitting complaints. It was difficult to shut out people. Even the time frame that we gave for people to submit complaints, that was exhausted, and so many other complaints came. And because we're focusing on the objective of ensuring peace within the system, it was only fair for us to actually give people the opportunity to air their grievances, and the panel would look into it and then come out with recommendations. So it was a mixture of reasons why the panel's sitting had to be elongated, and we feel it is better to ensure that substantial justice is done than to rush through a process as like the type of issue we have before the panel.
All right, Ustaz Usman Essen, what should actually be the process of adopting a panel's report under normal circumstances? If a panel is set up to investigate an issue such as the NSAS protest last year, what should be the process? What I mean here is at what point, will government say, look, from this report, we have a final document, and this final document could be relied upon for perhaps action to be taken on the report.
Thank you very much. Normally, after the panel might have submitted its report, it is sent to the government. The government will now set up a review panel. That is the one that drafts the white paper. When the white paper is drafted, it will be sent to the Executive Council of the state, it will debate it, and it is after that that you have what is legally a legally tenable report, not before then.
Now, in what appears to be perhaps what has taken on the airways, currently is that of the incident that happened at the Lekki toll gate during the October NSAS protest. How would you describe the leakage that media houses are beginning to report, even the foreign-based ones are beginning to report? How would you describe the situation where a report is leaked before the final white paper that you mentioned?
You see, if a report is leaked before the white paper is published, that is not a report. The qualities of a report are this. There must be the white paper. The government will tell you, this is what the panel decided on this issue. This is our view. We agree, we don't agree. We have not reached that stage at all. What is leaked now, for example? I had the opportunity of seeing it. Who signed it? Will you just take anything you see? Hook, line, and sinker. And the problem with us in this country is that we always prefer negative reports. It's unfortunate. As far as I'm concerned, as far as my brother K.O. is concerned, there is no report yet. Whatever we are looking at now is just hearsay. Even the panel report itself, even before the government does that, even if you want to say anything on that, there must be a certified copy of that panel report because it's a judicial inquiry. Anything before then should not be used at all. And I'm disappointed at CNN in particular. Don't they have legal department? You see, I'm not saying that what happened is palatable. No, it is not at all. And I don't support it at all. But the issue is that we should always follow due process. Please don't use myopic doors. What we call myopic doors is that if one says, if there is a fire outbreak now, KO tries to jump through the window here when there is no window, all of us will follow it. That is what is happening. And I beg Nigerians, look. If this country collapses, you and I will go. Please, let us focus on truth. Wait for the authentic report.
Okay, Yunus Stars, now thank you very much, Senior Advocate, for your opening comments. Ayo Akonji, just give us your own perspective on what's playing out. Are we just venting our spleen on an unofficial report, or what? Just what's playing out?
Yeah, I think in the affirmative, like SAN just said, we need to treat this thing with caution because what's the output of what comes up from here is what the international people take. And I'll start with what the president said when he met Secretary of State, who came visiting some 2 days ago. And he told him clearly that this whole thing, there's a subnational unit, which is Lagos State, that's instituted a committee. And we'll wait for them. We won't tell them what to do. We'll wait for them. And that's the white paper that's going to come out. So I think right now, Nigerians, first, there's a gap between the governed and the led. Nigerians don't trust governments. And this is their fear that we're seeing coming out by them looking at the report. I've not seen the report to myself. I'll only be following news comments on it. I've seen members of the panel come out to say this report is not correct. This is not what they sent out. So what's the haste? What's the hurry for? We're seeing different things. You come and say 9 people died. 2 people said they died. Pathologists say different things. So it seems like we're just in the haste to hang the government or to hang the armed forces. And I was really happy with what the CDS said a few times back, where he said the Nigerian armed forces is an institution that's peopled by Nigerians. And it's a professional institution. We don't expect them to come and kill Nigerians just like that. So I think we need to be patient. Those who are really pained by the NSAS brutality or by the police brutality should hold on. The government's white paper should be out in less than a week. And if it's out, the public will take it along, getting there. From there, we'll not know what to be done. But all of these comments we're having, and CNN is trying to justify a report that they did last year that was wrong, because they did a lot of reports that was hinged on fake and misinformation content. So now with this report coming out, they are coming out so quickly to celebrate it, but that's really wrong. For international medium like this, well, following out what's going on in America, we've seen what's happened with the Capitol invasion. Are they doing the same thing like they're doing here? So I think we need to have a country first before we can even have law and justice in the country. So we should abide by the rules and regulations of the states and wait for the process. We shouldn't jump the gun. We should wait for the process. Once we get there, we'll all see what the issues are. And I guess those who are found wanting will be dealt with. Mind you, Nigerians died. Aside people from, like, we had policemen and women that died. We had civilians that died. We had people that lost their source of business. There's no insurance, nothing for them. They have to go and start afresh. We had records that were lost. A lot of things. It's a whole gamut, the 360 gamut thing. So I think patients and those who have been given the job to do, we hope they would do the job and upheld truth in what they are doing. And then we'll hope to see what happens in the end. Yeah.
Now, Harry, let's look at this issue of leakage. Because as you rightly told us, Abuja's panel is yet to conclude its investigation. Now, is it because of the undue delay in coming out with a report that may have led to the leakage that we're talking about now? It's not just Lagos or Abuja that we have this panel of inquiry. We have it in other states. Yet none of them has been able to come up with a report. Not to talk of white paper, because as Minister Start said that after the report must have been submitted, another panel would also be set up to look at the report to come up with a white paper. So why this delay? If the panel is given 6 months within which to investigate an issue, and it takes almost a year to do that, wouldn't that be, an opening, for leakages? Because after all said and done, it may be a leakage, but you may find that there are some facts in the leakage because someone who is an insider must have been involved in this leakage.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is possible that the delay in conclusion and release of the report could be responsible for the leakage. But I think I will not agree solely that is the only reason. It depends on the motive of who is peddling what. Like the senior advocate said, there's no report yet in the public officially. What we're talking about are versions and stories being told based on the perception of whoever is telling the story. So it depends on the objective or the motive of who is telling the story. So why can't we wait for the official report to come out? And we have to go back to why the panel was set up in the first place. Is it not justice we're looking for? Because we want justice in Nigeria as a nation. So due process must be followed. And if we don't have an official report yet in the public space, then what are we debating on? So I can come up and give you reasons why I think what is in circulation should be taken as the official report or the authentic report. Other person can also come out and say that you should disregard whatever is in circulation. So there is need for us to wait for the official report to come out. And Nigerians should also know that we all seek peace. We all need peace in this country. Like my colleague just pointed out now, that people died. And it should actually be something of concern to everyone that is interested in having a peaceful and just society, to be concerned that someone died, whether you like that person or not, because you don't know what will happen tomorrow. And that is the focus of human rights. What we seek is, if there was any infraction by anybody, no matter how highly placed, such persons should be brought to account. And how do you bring people to account if you don't allow due process? It is good for panels, committees, or timeframes to be kept. But ultimately, I also explained why the National Human Rights Commission panel has not concluded this sitting. We needed to accommodate the complaints of people that came in, even after the time frame, and we also needed the right logistics to conclude and have a just and a fairly acceptable report to all. At the end of the day, what I'm emphasizing is that there must be due process of law, there must be rule of law in whatever we are seeking to achieve in Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Harry. Back again to Senior Advocate Ustaz Usman. I was just wondering, in the hoopla, as it were, around the leaked report of the panel in Lagos, which was one among several other panels. Are we losing sight of the cardinal issues around the NSAS protest and the rationale for the establishment of those panels? Because some of the commentaries would appear to focus essentially on, important as it is, whether there was a massacre or no massacre at the Lekki toll gate. But there were a number of other surrounding incidents. I mean, in Lagos itself, police stations were razed, policemen were killed, not just in Lagos, elsewhere in the country. In Benin City, for instance, there were 2 incidents of jailbreaks in the 2 prisons in the state capital. And of course, there was a reason, or there were reasons for the protests in the first instance, which the president himself acknowledged last year to say, look, yes, we have heard you. These are some of the intermediate measures we are taking, and so on and so on. Are we losing sight of the whole essence of it and just focusing on, well, as you say, the myopic view of whether there was a massacre or no massacre?
You see, the issue is simply this. Because of this unlawful report now circulating, people have even forgotten about what the NSAS wanted to achieve. What they wanted to achieve was, how do you curb police brutality in this country? But nobody is talking about that one now. That is the NSAS. That is what started all these things. But the way we are going about it now is as if it is just what happened in Lekki that is bothering us. That will not be the cure. The cure is, how do you stop police brutality in this country, which seems to be endless, which is never heeded to. You see, well, Nigerians will know that what they will look at, wait for this report, then see how you can have a reorganized police system in this country. People have died. But what is the root cause? We're not looking at that. That is not fair. And to be fair to the president government, I was watching this when this thing started in Abuja. Immediately they brought out their 5-point demand. The federal government said, we agree. There and then. Then you see where everybody thinks about peace. Everybody thinks about dialogue. Once the person says, look, yes, I agree with you. Now, immediately say, suspend SARS. Wait for the government action before you do anything. If we had waited, all these killings would not have happened at all. Hoodlums will not have taken over. And the trigger-happy police people will not have used that opportunity to continue their SARS after the NSAS protest. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, Kieran, I mean, it's interesting. Ayo Akonji, because it looks like we have to take a step back, to try and recollect what actually happened. Because the reminder now, when those 5-point demands were made, the president, of course, said that, the government would oblige and then, proceed thereafter. One other significant thing, I think my colleague and I, Kieran, were on set. Once the protesters left their locations in different parts of the country, the president sent each member of his cabinet to return to the state, to interact with the youth and other key influencers to find out, look, what were the issues bothering you? Give us the feedback. So my question is, are we losing sight of all of this and then just getting to focus on this narrow perspective? And as you probably usual with us, we just might lose sight of everything else and then becomes business as usual.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we're actually losing sight of everything else that's happened. Like you rightly said, the president asked all the ministers were back in their states. They met religious leaders, they met youth leaders, giving them the policies of the government and just trying to catch up with what was happening. Because the protest, if you look at the protest, started from a police brutality to a protest against bad governance. Because remember, we saw in some states where they were going into the palliatives to warehouses and they were letting loose of everything that was happening there. So it was going towards a state of anarchy. So the state had to come in and say, okay, fine, let's put these people abreast with what we're up to. And that happened across the entire country. But you see, the media has to play a very significant role in dousing this tension. Everyone puts their entire eye on Lekki massacre. What is a massacre? A massacre is where you kill people massively. We don't not seen that happen there. And that's been going, it's been going and been going. And people have forgotten this. The whole thing started from Delta State. This whole NSAS thing where a young guy was arrested by, I think, the SARS operatives there. And then they took his car and they pushed him over and people thought he died, but he didn't die. And that's where people started protesting against the entire thing. But now we've lost focus about that. We're now back to just Lagos. I mean, Lagos is the economic nerve of this country. We saw Lagos was burnt down during the NSAS protest. But even the insecurity challenges we're having in the southeast can be traced to this very NSAS campaign. Because like I said, subversive elements were able to hijack the entire protest and they made it their own heyday to throw out what they wanted to do. That's why we saw the now detained leader of the IPOP who was using his pirate radio to tell people to go and kill everyone across the place. It was during NSAS it happened. This is when we saw proper coordination of people, of non-state actors on social media, asking people to run this entire thing. And the young people, the youth that came out to protest against police brutality, we saw how they were very organized, they were very coordinated, their funds they were getting were administered with transparency to a good level. We could see how everything was going very fine. When they were done with their protest each day, they go back and trash the bin. But afterwards, we saw hoodlums. We saw hoodlums come into the street. We saw them with guns. We saw them attacking police. These are hoodlums that I guess the police officers had been dealing with. So we also need to see how we can refocus ourselves into the police brutality and see what are the reforms the government is actually doing right now. Government is doing so much. Just yesterday, I think officials from the German police, German foreign service were in Nigeria. They met with the police hierarchy and they're discussing on how they can make the Nigerian police more effective towards respecting human rights, intelligence gathering, equipment, training. And these are part of the demands that the NSAS leaders asked for, five demands for 5. They asked for a review of police salaries. The government I know of, I'm aware of, has kickstarted the community policing, where they've approved about 13 billion naira to kickstart that. They've asked the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission to work on a new salary scale for police officers. Last week, the Minister of Police Affairs launched a portal where Nigerians can report incidents of police brutality across the country, and then there's like a hub base here that can respond to that and see how they can deploy people back there. So these are things we need to pull out there, aside the purported Lekki massacre. And other states should bring up to speed what they're actually doing right now, so we can know what's going on. But in all we want to see is to have a very, very optimized and responsible police service for the country that can protect the Nigerians for internal security. Right now, we have the military in almost 36 states of the Federation. That's a telling on our policing of this country, because the military is your last line of defense. If you have them as your first line, that means you're very vulnerable. We're dealing with different kinds of security challenges across the country. So we really need a very holistic response to this. And we also need the media as the fourth realm of society to see how they can play a very good role in ensuring and then propagating these reforms that are ongoing in the police, and that can be able to not ensure that we have such kind of repeats of what happened during October 20 and 2020. Yeah, thank you.
All right. I like it when you said that we need a holistic approach to that. During the NSAS, there were 5 points demand, which of course we agreed that government accepted to do. First of all, is to disband the SARS, and then we talk about police salary and having a responsible police service in the country. Now, let me ask you this, Harry. Considering the magnitude of that protest, would it have been necessary for the federal government to set up a panel of inquiry than asking the subnationals to do that? Because the issue of Lekki is now being played up as if it was only in Lagos that this protest took place. Would it have been proper or adequate, for federal government to set up its own panel of inquiry on this matter? And again, expect contributions or other memoranda from different parts of the country as to what led to, because of course police is a federal, there's no state police in Nigeria presently. Yeah. So the police is of course under the purview of the federal government. Would it have been necessary to have this as a centralized panel of inquiry on this matter?
Yeah, when the directive for states to actually set up panel of inquiry came up, this issue was exhaustively discussed in the public space. And issues of law also came out, whether the federal government can set up judicial panel of inquiry in states. Remember that we operate federalism, the federal structure of government. The states have powers to actually investigate issues of that borders on criminality within their jurisdiction. And I think the directive by the federal government for states to set up these inquiries was properly given out. And you know, the National Human Rights Commission is playing a very critical role in the whole process of investigating the human rights issues involved in the protest. The National Human Rights Commission is a federal agency, even though with some level of, full independence, according to the Paris principles, to investigate issues of human rights violations. And so if we are handling the one in Abuja, which is not limited to Abuja complaints only, citizens were actually given the opportunity to file complaints from across the federation because we have national jurisdiction. So I believe having sub-nationals, like the state setting up their own inquiry, was to even bring the process closer to the people. So that shouldn't be a point of discouragement to citizens or add to the mistrust that gave rise to the protests in the first place. So we should just wait for these processes to be concluded and then see what the outcome will be and then see what the various states and the federal government will do with the outcome of these states. And I need to add that the issue of conflict between police and citizens is not limited to Nigeria alone. It is actually, the police is one of the law enforcement agencies that you constantly have frictions with. Now, my colleague talked about the army being present in about 36 states of the Federation. Conflict is a natural thing. When you have authorities having interface with citizens, there is bound to be conflict. It's the extent of that conflict and how the state reacts to her whenever it comes up that is important. And remember, about 2 years before the NSAS, the National Human Rights Commission had a panel process concluded on SARS, and the report was also given out. And most of the recommendations that are coming out of the leaked report and even concluded reports are not different from what has been said in the past. So like the SAN said, what is important is to address the issue of police brutality against citizens in Nigeria. And we need to actually work together, both citizens and the government, to ensure that we have a coordinated response to this issue that has the potentials of threatening the authority of any nation, particularly Nigeria, the way it is happening now.
Kingsley, I have to ask this question, because the Minister of Information and Culture reacted to the leaked report based on, the information that he has and what has been peddled, in the media space. So, because, of course, he's a federal minister, and he's reacting because if anything goes wrong, if for instance, the federal government is blamed for whatever massacre that we know they didn't exist, right? Of course, they take the brunt of it. It's not sub-nationals. Yeah. So that is why some persons could think that, look, if there was a panel of inquiry set up at the federal level, at least now we'll be able to now dissect information coming from those complaints that the panel will investigate. Because one, if, for instance, the white paper of Lagos inquiry finally comes up, and some of the leaked information are found in that white paper, what would that look like? Would it have, affected the legality of this inquiry, if that occurs?
Yeah, I'm grateful. Let me tell you this thing. The issue of Public Inquiry Act is a state matter. The federal government cannot come in at all. If anything happens in the state and a board of inquiry is to be set up, like the Zaki something, of which I was a member, people were calling on the federal government. I said, federal government, you cannot come in, because unless that law is amended to be a federal law, you can't come in. In whatever state it happens, it is that state alone that has absolute power, absolute jurisdiction to do it. Then, if they need the help of the federal government, yes, the federal government can come and help them, but the federal government cannot on its own establish it. That is the position of the law as at today.
And then just to add to that, my colleague Kieran has asked the question because it seeks clarification. Leonard Senior Advocate, you recall the Oputa panel, that's the Human Rights Commission. One of the reasons why the report of that panel was unimplementable was precisely what the Senior Advocate has said, and that was a judicial authority. All right, so Leonard Senior Advocate, please continue with your response to the question.
So if you look at it, if you want the federal government to help you, federal government can't come and help you because federal government is the father of all the states. But then it is not their duty. In fact, they have no power to set it up at all. And if you look at it critically, even if there is a report against the police, the state concerned that set up this inquiry can now send the report to the federal government to implement against its own arm of the government that might have faulted. That is how far it goes today. And the issue of this police, I agree with my brother when he said all over the world. But let me tell you, from my old age, all over the world, the police brutality in Nigeria is not as it is in all the other places of the world. Our own seems to be endless. They don't take advice. They don't heed advice. In fact, it is so unfortunate that sometimes I begin to think, do we need Nigerians as police? No, on a very serious note. Because, for instance, what they are supposed to do, they don't do. I came from Kaduna the day before yesterday because of this train something. Do you know we did not see more than 2 policemen on the way from Kaduna to this place? But when it comes to brutalizing your own citizens, whose money is being used to pay you, they are eager. I'm not saying they are not good ones. They are good ones like, I may mention name because of my age now. The DIG here, Joseph, is it Otunene or Bobby? This is a fine gentleman. But then the problem we have is mainly with those who carry guns and go and interact with people, go to the streets and so on. These are the real culprits that will need to be trained. But the point we have in Nigeria is that even if you train them, as if it is dropping water inside a basket.
A senior advocate, please, many Nigerians may be thinking differently with respect to how to react when policemen, like you said, violate a law. Police is under the federal government. And what happened at NTSAS resulted in setting up panels of inquiry. Now, if, for instance, Lagos state government comes up with a white paper, will the state now send the white paper to the federal government for implementation? Is there a lacuna somewhere in the law based on the fact that police is a federal outfit? Meanwhile, whatever offense the police may have committed is being handled at the state level. So what happens when the white paper comes out? Who implements the white paper?
It's very simple. Let me show you the very good example. It's just like what happened during the Zaki panel. It was the military, not a state military, that went after the interaction, went in the evening and started killing people. You see, the white paper something is find out the truth. What happened? What are the facts? Who is culpable? Who is not culpable? Then you can now send it to the respective organs of the government that you think should take an action. If a crime is committed and you send it to the police commission or something like that, it is they who now initiate criminal proceedings against those who are involved.
You send it from the state.
Yes.
You send it to the federal agency.
Yes.
To take action.
You send it to the federal government and say, this is our finding. If it is not an offense it's not a state offense, you send it. If they like to prosecute it, you have done your own.
Exactly. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. So white papers may come out without being implementable, because if it comes from a state and the state is asking an agency of the federal government to now take action on the white paper, how is it going to work? Is that?
Okay, Kieran.
I just want to understand.
Yeah, Kieran, I understand. I mean, there's no question about it that a number of our viewers will also be asking similar questions.
Exactly.
Just to back up a bit, I referred earlier to the Oputa panel, if you recall. It was the equivalent of our Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It was a Supreme Court decision that said that the panels of tribunals of inquiry are state matters. Now, last year, when the federal and subnational authorities were agreeing to the setting up of the tribunals of inquiry or the commissions of inquiry, it was clear how they were going to work. That, look, this is your remit. Handle it, set up your own terms of reference. There were no general terms of reference, but set up your own terms of reference. And that, Kirian, once your report comes out, if there are implications for federal agencies, you forward those implications to the federal agencies for implementation. And if there are implications for state powers, the state would handle, including dealing with state offenses, Kirian. I recognize what you are saying, but there was a clear willingness on the part of the federal government to say, look, we recognize this as a matter that has implication for all of us in the country, and we have to try and put a stop to this. That's why those steps were taken at that material time. I mean, disbanding SARS itself and renaming it was one of the measures adopted. But SAN has said something, namely that we continue to see instances of uncivil relations between law enforcement, in this case the police and the citizens. Akonji, there was a video that went viral a couple of weeks ago. It was somewhere around Okene. Part of the complaints that you had before the NSAS and during the NSAS was that SARS operatives were going about with POS and confronting young persons and then demanding, if I'm not extorting them. If they saw you with a laptop, then of course the presumption was that you were a Yahoo boy. If they saw you with a flashy phone, then you were a Yahoo boy. And then they needed to extort you. Now that video was the one that related to travelers who were stopped on the highway, and one of the passengers was taken away by the officials and then asked to go and download his account. After that, there was another video that went viral, I'm sure you have seen this, of a police officer at a training session who was advising citizens to say, no police officer has a right to demand for your telephone without a warrant. This shows, in a sense, that some of the complaints by the youth about the SARS behavior would appear to remain with us. Ayo.
Yes, that's very correct. I saw the both videos you're talking about, and it's rather, the first one, the one in Kogi, was rather unfortunate. Those things are still there. And this is why that's why the public or the youth still think that whatever government is saying is just a ruse. Because the same issues of what they're dealing with back then, they're still facing them right now. They're still being profiled, even though it has reduced. A friend of mine called me like last week in Lagos. He just came out from the States and he had a bit of dreadlocks. And he's a very good developer who works for one of the big IT firms there. And he just held him back here in Lagos, and they asked him, because he had a tattoo on his body, and they asked him that he's a cultist. And he said, no, he's not. He actually has a business he's doing. And they had an argument, like, just to use your term, he had to download some money from his account to the police officer to secure his freedom. So now call me and say, but I thought this whole thing has stopped. What's still happening? And I couldn't say anything. But the fact is that we see our bad element, we see our bad eggs among police officers. And the only thing that can make people believe that the change is actually happening is when there's consequence for action. Now we need to call on the IGP and the Police Service Commission to deal with people. There are complaints every day. When you arrest them, make them a scapegoat. Let the public see that this officer was arrested by this. And like I said, no police officer has a right to check your phone or your laptop without a warrant, without a search warrant. They don't have that right to. But so people just get scared. They just come and muscle you with their guns, and you just want to be safe. So you submit to what they're saying. So we need a proper awareness. Back in the day, the former spokesperson of the Nigerian Police Force, Jimo, I think is in Lagos now. So he used to have this interaction with youths on social media called Ask the Police, it's a hashtag. And there he comes in, spends like 2 hours discussing on various issues, and people come there to ask them on various of their issues they are facing police officers. And when they are done, people leave more equipped. So our security agencies need to cultivate the habits of interacting with the citizenry on social media. Even though Twitter has been suspended, I hope very soon they will lift the ban. We need to communicate these things we should move away from. I think I see our security agencies behaving in the opaque ways of secrecy when we have military government. The world has changed right now. You find the CIA, the KGB, the MI6, all of these security agencies on social media. That's what you call open information. So you have to use these tools. They're also helping information intelligence gathering. We cannot just block our way from there and think it's not a one-way, it's a two-way street. So the more the citizenry can feel an impact of communication with the people that are leading them, it will reduce in a very good degree these arguments and these hits we're always having now and then. And we also need the professionalism from the police officers, because like you said, sir, police are the people that you always interact with almost every day. In other countries, they are well taken care of. I mean, I know that our resources here are depleting. But even with what we have, if they are well trained, if they are well disciplined, we can have an effective police force that will treat Nigerians really good. Our Nigerian police officers, they go to peacekeeping missions in Somalia and Sudan and other countries, and they behave professionally so well. But when they're in Nigeria here, it's the opposite. Charity begins at home, not abroad. So I think we all need to close our ranks together and then hope that we can have a very effective policing system in the country going forward.
All right, thank you. Harry, when I was in active service, as a reporter, I had the privilege of doing a report that took me to the police headquarters. Actually, it was the IG then was in the was chairing the occasion, and I raised one critical point, which of course we are talking about now: police salary. To raise it to a level where a policeman in Nigeria could be satisfied with what he takes home. Because this issue of extortion and all of that, these are men who stand under the sun, carrying guns. Yes, they're doing their lawful duty, as a matter of fact. But then, if you compare them to police in the UK or in the US, for instance, you cannot be salaried and they're not close. Some policeman collects 50,000 naira a month. How can he? This is a man who is carrying AK-47, and he cannot feed his family. Some of them are even tattered, the way they dress. That means they don't have, a good outfit, not properly kitted. Now you have a Human Rights Commission, and reviewing of police salary is also part of the 5 points raised during the NSARS. Yeah. Why has this not been looked into? Because if a policeman takes home good sum of money, it could be difficult to bribe him under normal circumstances. I know that some persons are greedy, quite all right. But then if somebody takes substantial amount of money home on a monthly basis, a man that is even vulnerable, because sometimes they are attacked. Remember what happened there somewhere in Abuja here, where policemen on duty were just attacked by about 6 or 7 of them were killed, and all of that. So the risk is also there. So has time has come, if you ask me, to do a review of police salary? What do you think?
Yes, I agree with you that there is need to actually motivate the police adequately. Even if we think that the issue of accountability does not border on salary alone, but then there will be justification for people to say that you have no reason to do what you're doing, to collect money from people, extort money from people anyhow. The police, being the symbol of authority that is visible to the citizen, must be respected. And it's not just about the salaries alone. Even what they put on, their kits, the welfare, their housing. So where you live in an environment with the police and you see that he does not command any form of respect because of the type of accommodation he lives in, the way he dresses, the type of mobility he has and all that, there's no way you respect that person, the police, genuinely. So the authorities actually need to pay attention to remuneration of police officers, and after that they can also say that they should be adequately held accountable. And the issue of the misbehavior of policemen should also concern us from the perspective of holding them accountable to whatever they do, even individually. Whenever anybody commits, there's this culture of impunity, or the police officer feeling that whatever I do, the authorities will shield me first. Okay, we should move beyond that and ensure that whoever commits should go in for it. And that is the only way we can curb this issue of police misbehavior or extortion of civilians and even killing of civilians, there should be two ways of holding them accountable. You have the institutional accountability. There should be personal liability for whatever anybody does. And that takes me back to the issue of recommendation from the state panels. If the state panel recommends that a particular police officer has been indicted, the authorities have the responsibility to have an internal process where that person will, the cloth of protection, official protection, will be removed from him. He can be charged anywhere across the country in line with the state laws. And if, like the SAN said, if the crime is also against the federal government, he can also be tried, to be tried at the federal level for whatever he has committed. So we should work together as a federal, arrangement to ensure that each person is held responsible for whatever for his or her actions.
All right.
SAN,
you're wishing to say
I'm sorry.
something.
Yes, on this issue of salary. The issue of salary, I was a public servant, a junior public servant. The issue is not police alone.
Yeah.
There is need to look at the salary, but not the salary. Salary does not take anybody anywhere. In fact, during my own time, salary days were my worst days because I would write paper 3 times cancel, right? You see, the issue is simply, you see, the governments will look at the prices of commodities, bring these things down. It is not how much. If you are paid 1 million today and 1 million cannot buy you a bag of rice, what is the use? It is the prices of goods that should be brought down, not the amount you are paid as salary. Because as you are increasing, the market people will hear before you, like they answer something that leaked. It will leak to them that this is going to be increased, and they increase their own 3 times. So it's not, and it's not police alone. All the public servants, look at their welfare. It's the welfare, not the amount of money you take home. It may not buy anything.
All right, Leonard, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you very much. And the other guest, thanks a lot. I mean, we're talking about Kira, cost of living.
Exactly.
40 years, in fact, in the 70s, you could buy a package shirt, what we call a package shirt,
Chiffon.
for 4 naira.
Wow.
4 naira, 1, 2, 3, 4 naira. And then, what was the cost of a flight from Lagos to London or Lagos to New York or Nigeria Airways, or the cost of using luxury bus from Lagos to Onitsha? These things were affordable. If you were a student that you were feeding, a meal was 50 kobo, a day 1 naira 50 kobo. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. All right, you're welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Just a reminder, so that we have an indication much more clearly of what the judicial commissions of inquiry were all about. In Lagos, for instance, the title was Lagos State Judicial Panel of Inquiry on Restitution for Victims of SARS-related Abuses. So it appears the impression that, again, the impression has been created that panel conversations or panel proceedings focused essentially around the Lekki toll gate and nowhere else. But there were reports, and I think I also picked that from the Abuja sittings, of persons who came forward because their family members had been victims of SARS brutality. Some of them killed. There was a very moving story of a woman who was talking about how the husband or relative was shot in cold blood, and so on and so forth. That's why, Senior Advocate, I keep asking this question, whether we are losing sight, of the larger objective of the commissions of inquiry. Because a commission of inquiry report would indicate their proceedings. We'll tell you, these are the things, these are the petitions we received, these were the issues, and then, of course, deliberations, and then our findings. How do we get back to the essence of all of this, at least for those who haven't concluded their work, to say, look, let's not lose sight of this so that the gains derivable from it can indeed be harvested, namely ensuring justice for victims, and then also ensuring that appropriate reforms follow and that we don't have a reoccurrence of some of the misbehavior that we'll be talking about.
You see, to start with, I was not happy with the tag Lagos State government gave to it, as if it is just for the restitution of the victims or so. It's wider than that. When you talk about commissions of inquiry, something like that, you are looking at it holistically. First of all, the causation, not the effect. What Lagos is saying is that how do you restitute this? No, it's wider than that. And we hope that for those other states who have not concluded, they should look at it holistically as it ought to be. First of all, what you do is that, of course, it's in the terms of reference. What is the root cause? You germinate it from there. Before you won't come to how are you going to compensate this, or how is this going to be done? Lagos, and I'm praying that Lagos State, I have not seen the certified copy of the judgment, should not
Of the report.
Okay, of the report. Lagos State should not limit its view on the compensation or restitution of the victims alone, but it should start from the causation. What is the root cause first? That is how you build it up.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Let's bring
Harry,
in
what's your
Ayo once again. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What's your view on this? With regard to having a broad spectrum approach to the issues, because EndSars was a label, as it were, to frame the issues of police brutality. Yeah. Are we on the path to getting those issues and then deriving the benefits from this interrogation?
Yeah, it's actually very important to focus more on the causes. What led to the problem that actually gave rise or had a lot of damages on lives and properties. Why? How did we get there? That should be the focus of the society, so that we don't have a repetition of such things playing out in the future. So the panel of inquiries should focus on the causative factors, and thereafter, of course, it's good to also focus on justice for the victims, and that is where restitution comes in. And also, there should be a holistic analysis or in-depth investigation of what happened. Why did that issue resonate so much nationally across the federation? We're talking about the behavior of the police. How come every young man had a story to tell on their experiences, unpalatable experiences with the police? And so the investigative panels were meant to actually unravel the causative factors, and that is why we expect them to also make recommendations with regard to how policemen should be treated, what their rules of engagement should be, how their welfare should be taken care of. And then, of course, you look at the general welfare of public servants, like the Lenesik also talked about, because what happens in the general public rubs off on the police, because they're also members of the public, and every other person that has one role or the other to play. But to speak directly to your question, we need to go beyond just restitution or compensation to unravel the causes of the protests in the first place.
Okay, Ayo, let's also bring you in along this line. You know, you are the first person to mention the fact that we need to look at the issue, holistically. Well, add this to that. One of the 5 points raised by the public, when this EndSars started, was the issue of a police reform in terms of training and retraining of police personnel. And as you also pointed out in your submission, that a German firm or a German team actually came to Nigeria, and they were seeking to provide assistance to Nigerian government in terms of providing training for the police. How best do you think this can be handled for us to have a reformed policeman to avoid this brutality and the sort of EndSars protest that we had in October last year?
Thank you very much. I think one of the first things we need to do is actually more funding for that, and also looking forward to a partnership between society organizations like NGOs that can monitor part of those reforms that are ongoing. And I know that we have the Police Trust Fund now that has been created, and there's also trying to say they can fund it with about 1% from the revenue consolidated accounts. So we need to see a bit of transparency there, because a few times they had a few issues there in the media about the quality of weapons that they were able to, that they procured and submitted certain police installations. So there has to be transparency in this entire thing. I remember I was reading a report that said that to equip a proper police station is about 300 million naira to have everything proper in it. Now, do we have that funding? I'm not sure we do have that funding. But do we have the capacity to bring out partners that can join Nigeria in doing this? I think we have the capacity, and that's what we saw yesterday when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Germany and former and their police operatives were in Nigeria to interface with their partners here and to see how they can build upon these fundamental issues. And I think the Clean Foundation too has been doing that very well, partnering with the European Union. We need more of these partners. We need more funding for this. And the government has to look out for different avenues of releasing funds to ensure that the police are well trained, are well equipped, and then those who are actually recruited into the police forces too are very, very important too. You have to run psychological tests, you have to run drug tests. I saw the NDLA chairman talking about that. These are issues you need to look into so that you're bringing the right crop of people with the right mental bearing into the police force so they don't come in and begin to upturn things upside down. And also Nigerians also too, our communication with police officers too are very important. I've been a few times when I'm driving back home after work at night, and a police officer stops someone in the car and is talking to you, and then you just come and start talking. Do you know who I am? These are things that are actually not wrong. These are things that trigger them also too. Like you were saying, they're human beings too. They wear a uniform, they have families at home, they have daughters and so on. We should speak to them with respect. The fact that they wear black on black doesn't mean they're animals. They're humans like us too. We have friends we have loved ones who are police officers too. So the manner at which we respond to them is also very important. When you respond to them with courtesy, I've been stopped by police officers in different times, and I can say that sometimes the manner in which we approach and speak together always gets you out. Even if they find you wanting, they just say, okay, fine, go try and ensure you get this thing ready. So these are things, we're all stakeholders in this piece of trying to get equipped and a very good police force in the country. So everyone has a role to play in achieving this goal. But we really need to see that the police hierarchy hold people accountable. That's the most important thing we need to see in this country. When people are not held by their crimes, then it means others can go and do it and go unpunished, and the cycle goes on and on and on. So I think with these few things around, we hope that we can have a very effective police force going forward in the country.
All right. I'm sorry. Can I just build on that? You see, the whole thing is we need a total overhaul. Now, you see, we have enough graduates now. A graduate must have been somebody who went through the university. Maybe sometimes he will not have meal ticket. He knows the value of life. More than a primary school leaver or somebody who just left secondary school. That person will not have as much value for one's life as a graduate who had suffered it all. We have enough graduates. Let us start recruiting, particularly graduates now, because the training matters a lot. Somebody who has not suffered before will not value my life, he does not even value his own life. No, it starts from there. Maybe sometimes we're skipping meal tickets because you didn't have money. So you know what it is. And because of that, you have the value for everybody's life. But I think one of the major problems we have is that they don't have, most of them, especially those who hold the trigger at the checkpoints, do not have that value for life because they didn't go through all these tedious aspects of life in their life. So human life does not really matter to them. That is the beginning. The issue of respecting the police, yes, you respect them, but in ordinary parlance, it is the police who respects you. As a bushman, I was in London, I missed my way. One policeman just came and said, sir, can I help you? I said, yes, Swiss Hotel. It was behind me, I didn't know. This man chartered a taxi cab, took me there, and every morning he was coming to say, I hope you are fine today. We'll end Nigerian, in fact, the Nigerian policeman will say you are an armed robber. No, the training, the educational system, the educational qualification of the policeman, the person holding the gun, is the first point to start from.
Well, you, I don't know. Everyone is chuckling in the studios. Thank you very much, Leonard, Senior Advocate, for the illustration that you gave. Look, I just, when we have very little time left, back again to seeking clarification for the issues arising from the NSAS protests, so that matters are not obfuscated. We saw what happened, for instance, on the 6th of January this year in Washington, D.C., when hoodlums invaded the Capitol. And afterwards, we have been seeing trials and conviction of those persons. Some of the suspects were picked up on account of video evidence. In Lagos, for instance, we saw how several police stations were razed. The palace of the Oba of Lagos was vandalized, and all kinds of persons were even playing in the swimming pool with some of them, enjoying themselves with their feet. And I think somebody was careless enough to have even sat on the throne. His staff of office was taken away. But more importantly, for law enforcement, we saw that law courts at Igboshere, law courts were razed. Court records were destroyed. The judges' apparel were also taken away. Are we going to see a situation? I hear there are some trials going on. I'm not quite sure of the details. To say, let us also not focus on this. That look, those were not just incidents of sheer anger. Those were criminal acts that ordinarily the law should frown at and punish accordingly. Senior Advocate.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And whoever is involved, whether the member of those saying NTOSAS or policeman, whoever is involved must be brought to book. Because you see, I was here sometime and I said I was disappointed with our youth. You are doing this and you are stealing the toilet seat. What does this have to do with NSAS? The whole thing is blamable, and like you said, whoever is found culpable, whether members of the police force or whoever, or even among those protesting. For example, we had the video clip of all these people. Bring all of them to book. If you don't, this thing will not stop. Then we do that. If we do that, it may put an end to it. But the most essential thing again is this. When these reports are brought and they are kept in the shelf, of course, you are asking for a repeat of it.
Well, yes, that's a very good point you've made, because it's nearly a year now, if not more than a year now, that those panels were set up, yet we're not getting any white paper. Now this one is just submitted, and of course we're talking about leakages. Right, so at this point, gentlemen, we have to call it a day on this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for being here, and of course making it possible for us to have this show. Yunus Ustaz Osman, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, we appreciate your time and of course your submissions this morning. Harry Oguche Obe, Director, Women and Children Department, National Human Rights Commission, we also appreciate you being here this morning. Of course, Ayo Bami, I hope I got that correctly, Akonji, Public Affairs Commentator. Thank you indeed for being part of our show this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, now let's take a bit of sports. Of course, Kingston yesterday, there were playoffs. This.
Narrow escape for Barcelona, they would have been out. If that last minute goal came in, Chelsea.
All right, let's